And we're off.
Hi everyone, welcome to The Field Between. I'm Yasmin.
I'm Ahmed.
And we're excited to be here. It's a Monday.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't make our Sunday goal, but we're making our post once a week goal, so that's good.
Yeah.
How was our weekend?
You guys will get what we give you when we give it to you.
Yeah.
And you'll like it.
That's the vibe.
Yeah.
Always a welcoming vibe.
Huh?
Always a welcoming
Yeah.
vibe. Yeah.
How was the weekend? I ran up that hill.
This hill was crazy, y'all.
Yeah,
it was very vertical.
What would you say? It was like it's like more than a 45-degree incline.
I'm so bad with that kind of stuff, but yes, it definitely looked like it.
It looked like a 60-degree incline.
That sounds right. Yeah. If I'm picturing a triangle.
Yeah. And I was just like, I need to sprint up that hill, and I did.
From the very first time you saw it, you were really like taken with it. You were just like had a vision.
That's just man's domineering spirit and adventure. Yeah. Because I hate running, but I do need to work on my cardiovascular health.
But you like sprinting though, right? You just
I like sprinting.
You don't
that's the thing. I don't like
running. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm going to sprint up this hill. That's going to be good cardio, be a good leg workout. And it just destroyed me. I made it up the hill once and I was like, okay, let me try again. And I made it halfway up.
I'm impressed you made it up once. It was a steep ass hill.
It was insane. Yeah. But
I'm
going to try it. My goal, my calves are still so fucking sore from that. Yeah.
That was on like Saturday, right? Damn.
Was that Saturday? No.
I think so.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. So I think I'm going to try to do that once I recover, get up to twice a week.
Once you recover from this first time.
Yeah.
Maybe you should start with once a week to build up your stamina. So like you did it Saturday, maybe do it like again this Saturday. And then like once that kills you a little bit less, you could do twice a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The lanternflies, I think, are at their peak right now.
It really feels very like, just like plague. Like I just went for a walk and they were swarming me. It was kind of gross. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you want a chair?
I think I'm good. Thank you though.
Okay. You're not uncomfortable?
No.
Okay. I'm good. And they're just all over, like we're inside and you can just look out and they're all over the window on the outside. It looks like they're just trying to get in the house. Yeah. It does feel like a kind of a biblical plague.
Yeah. I haven't really read. I wonder if it's as bad in other parts of the country. It's pretty bad here.
I think they're mostly in the Northeast. They're working their way down south.
Nice.
So I think they've made it as far down as DC.
Them and the wildfires.
Yeah. But yeah, they're gross. I don't like them.
Yeah, at first I thought they were pretty, but now that there's so many of them, they kind of freak me out.
Yeah, and they congregate on...
And they really jump on you. Yeah.
Seeing them in a big group is unnerving.
Yeah. Actually, when we came back from you running up that hill, we were walking on this bridge and there was like one post that was literally completely covered in them and it was pretty gross.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems like an omen.
Yeah, it does.
It portends something bad. I think it just
pretends that the climate is continuing to warm and we get to adapt to it and live through it.
Yeah.
Every morning I put on sunscreen, I think, this is because there's no ozone layer. I can't forget this.
Really?
Yeah. It's not your mother's ozone layer,
Yeah.
Yep.
What else?
Friday was like a silly but fun, indulgent day. We watched 3 hours of Sopranos, and then we went to the Little Italy Festival.
Yeah.
Which was old school, man. It was fun. Some of it was just sort of, like any city festival. So there was like, funnel cake and...
State Farm Insurance.
Gyros. Yeah. Things that are not particularly Italian. But there was also some really good Italian food. There was lasagna.
We walked around with lasagna, which is not the best walking around food when it's hot, but
we made it work.
It's fun.
But there's like an Irish versus Italian bocce ball tournament.
Yeah.
Which interwhite conflict is really a commitment,
Now, does bocce ball have Italian roots? I would guess so by the name, but
I don't know. I can Google it. I have no idea. And there was a lot of like Sinatra covers, so it was quite a vibe.
I would actually say the most Italian thing we did was not even the Little Italy Festival. It was. Does it have Italian roots?
Yeah, you're totally right.
What is it?
Never would have guessed that.
Well, I would have by the name. Bocce.
That's smart. Yeah. Developed in its present form in Italy.
Wow.
What were you saying?
I think the most Italian thing we did was in the Strip District, we went to Stromboli's.
Oh yeah, there's some really cool in the Strip District in Pittsburgh. If you're ever here or if you're in Pittsburgh, it's some really cool specialty food places.
Stromboli's, and then next door is a place called Enrico's. Biscotti.
Yes, so we got some good biscotti, and we saw this thing I really want to try. I want to say baklava, but what is it? Bacala?
Bacala, it's salted cod.
Yeah, it looks cool. It's like dried cod. A lot of really cool specialty food stores by us. It's been fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. And besides that, we went on separate friend dates, which was good. I've been getting back into biking. That was really fun. When I lived in Portland, Oregon for 2 years, my second year there.
Wait, we went on separate friend dates?
Yeah, you went with.
Oh yeah, and then we did one together.
That's right. Yeah, so a good weekend for making friends. We had a couple over who we really liked. That was really fun.
Yeah,
it's really nice when you like meet people and you can host them in your home, and it just feels like seamless and easy. But yeah, I've been getting into biking. I went for like a half-hour bike ride there, half-hour bike ride back. The city is pretty bikeable, and it feels really nice to be able to like move around that way. And I think one thing that was hard about living in North Carolina is every time I got into a car, like I felt a little anxious because I'm such a terrible driver.
Yeah.
And so it's really nice to be able to just kind of like move more seamlessly and feel like strong. And yeah, that's been really fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. What's on deck for today?
We're doing items, which will be fun. I think we should just go back and forth and make it kind of random. Yeah. Do you want to start us off?
Okay. No, you start.
Okay. So you might want to insert this in later, but I'll play the clip for you. This is just a concept that I thought was really cool from this YouTuber. Her name is...
Hold on. Let me,
Is there like an audio thing we could do?
Let me stop recording.
I'll play it.
And then you send me the thing. And I'll play it on my laptop. Okay. And then it'll...
You can record it for your laptop?
Yeah. We'll give that a shot. All right. Okay. We're set up. All right, so you want to intro this?
Yeah, so this is a YouTuber named Hannah Witten, who I've followed for a while. I'm not subscribed to her, but I enjoy her content. She's now a mother and doing a lot of parenting content, but back in the day, she used to do a lot of kind of sex education content, and this is her kind of getting back to that. And it's just like a really sweet concept that I thought it was nice to have a term for.
Okay.
What is sexual currency? Sexual currency isn't sex, and it also doesn't really have anything to do with money. It's all of the moments in between having sex when you and your partner are treating each other as sexual beings. Exchanging sexual currency with someone is building an erotic charge between you. It's the flirty vibes, the playful, sexy vibes, the I'm noticing that your bum looks good in those jeans vibes. They're the kind of interactions that you would only have with a sexual partner. You're not going to be doing this with your mates or your aunties. We need to recognize that our sexuality and our sex lives are far more than just the sexual acts that we engage in. But we often reduce our sex lives down to the times when we're having sex, whether that's partnered or solo sex. And the key to sexual currency and all of these little sexual moments is that they are present without the pressure for it to lead to sex. The aim isn't to initiate sex. The aim is to connect with your partner and to demonstrate that you see them as a sexual being and to build intimacy, even if, and especially if, you're not able to have sex.
She was about to tell us how to acquire more sexual currency.
She was.
I'm trying to be a sexual mogul out here.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just thought that was so sweet. I love that. I feel like there's so much kind of, advice out there about partnership and long-term partnership, but I love the idea of just kind of like keeping it fresh by seeing your person or your partner as like a sexual being. And also the fact that it doesn't have to lead to pressure. And obviously that's like a nice thing to have, like a healthy sex relationship and stuff. But like sickness happens, things happen. It's good to have other ways to feel connected. Yeah. And it's also, I think if you kind of maintain that kind of like charge and flirting, it also like benefits when you do have sex, I guess.
Yeah, I think this is just another way of putting that, right? Like she puts it in kind of these market terms that maybe people can understand a little bit better. Yeah. Or it seems like she was just like, oh, if you want to build wealth in your sexual savings account, then you gotta
she's a little tongue-in-cheek about it. Yeah.
But I think you could probably go to a couple of people and say like, oh, you should say things to make your partner feel good, or like recognize things. Don't just like part of not taking them for granted. And
yeah. And actually later on in that clip, she talks about, which I also appreciated, even building like sexual currency with yourself. So kind of thinking about like,
looking in the mirror and just being like nice ass.
Yeah, or like wearing clothes, like textures or things that make you feel good, or just, kind of spending time with yourself that is not necessarily like, self-pleasure, but that is like sensual, or that is, time that is thoughtful. Yeah. Which I think is a nice idea.
Yeah, that seems nice. I mean, it's good to say those things. I don't know. It's definitely like a nice idea to practice. And hopefully to get people to think about their partners and their own bodies outside of the like mainstream ideas of like sexuality and beauty and whatever.
To kind of be like a little present.
I think it's one of those things where the idea here is that you kind of have to practice and build the habits that keep you attracted and attractive to your partner
and to yourself. I think,
and to yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not just something that you can, I think your relationship will be healthier if you get in the habit of doing it frequently, instead of like sporadically, just kind of whenever you feel like you want to be intimate in that moment with your partner.
Right. It's also a good reminder for like when you have periods where you can't be like physically intimate, that there are other kind of forms of intimacy.
Yeah.
Which I think you kind of know that intuitively, but I feel like it's something I had to learn a little bit. Was like, oh, like there's other ways to like feel close and like feel like kind of connection, Yeah,
I think like, for me, kind of cuddling on the couch or giving a foot rub or a back rub.
Exactly. Even other forms of touch, totally.
Yeah.
All right, what you got?
For me, do you want to go through your items first?
Mine are pretty random, but sure.
It's gonna be real random for me on my end as well. I don't know how this is.
Well, we got to do our thing where we're trying to find a field between things.
Okay.
Let's try.
I'll go with one. All
okay. Right. Are you gonna field it?
Huh?
Are you gonna find the field?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if there is one here.
I'll try. You go.
Last time, or in a couple of episodes, I think last time I brought up Fousey tube.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think last episode, yeah.
Yeah, and how he's was it last episode? Anyway,
it was last episode.
How he's been kind of making a comeback on social media, really trying to build his promotional brand G7, and he's been hanging out with all these teenage influencers. I don't know if you know who like Aiden Ross is.
I don't.
Or like anyway, so he's been hanging out with Aiden Ross, who's like this big guy on Twitch and Kick.
I haven't even heard of Kick. I feel old.
And Aiden Ross is like a kid who I first heard about him because he was like doing all these streams with Andrew Tate and just kind of like dick riding Andrew Tate.
Is that the technical term, dick riding?
Yeah. But he's been, so Fousey's, he's like been making the rounds and hanging out with all these different streamers, and two of the ones he's been hanging out with are young Muslim guys. I think one of them's a convert. So Sneeko, who I have brought up before on the podcast for some like kind of fucked up tweets.
Mm-hmm.
Again, one of those guys who Sneeko, I think, is also like a Andrew Tate disciple kind of dude.
It's almost like he's like a naughty Sufi sheikh, the dark side of Star Wars kind of thing.
Yeah. And Neon, who is this like 19-year-old Pakistani
names are ridiculous,
kid.
But continue. Okay.
Yeah, he's like this 19-year-old Pakistani kid.
Neon is in like neon color.
Neon, yeah.
Okay.
Except the E is a 3.
Great.
And from what I can get from his brand is that his whole thing is trying to be as edgy as possible in his streams. Like he'll be talking. Yeah, he's like totally an edgelord, but he'll like interrupt people and scream and just ask like rapid fire questions to like really throw people off. And I guess people like that. He's just kind of like a rapid fire troll message board in a person. So yeah, Fousey's been hanging out with them. And there's one video of them arguing about who's like the better Muslim and stuff. And Sneeko, I mean, whatever, like you can say what you want about people's pious, like, but like he's like, and again, one of these people who, these guys do like takfir on people, especially women who are just like, they're you know, slutty, you can't be a good Muslim, blah blah blah. And there's a video of Fousey, and when they meet up in his hotel room with Sneeko, he is like, oh, do you know how to pray? He's like, oh yeah, and he's like, do you know Surah Al-Fatiha? And he's like, he doesn't know the Surah Al-Fatiha.
For those who don't know, it's like something you need to pray, essentially.
Which again is like everyone is at their own pace, and I make no judgments. We would never
say like, oh, you don't know Fatiha, you're not Muslim. However, it is like the first surah you kind of need to memorize in order to eventually pray properly.
And if you don't know it, at least don't go online and just be talking about how like
other people are not Muslim. Yeah,
women who wear X, Y, and Z are bad Muslims. Yeah, or wait, whatever.
So the person who didn't know how to pray was Neon?
Sneeko,
okay.
Yeah. And so there's a video of Yusuf showing like praying with him, Fousey, yeah.
Oh, like teaching him how to pray?
They're praying together, but it's kind of weird because he's like live streaming the whole thing, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, maybe I'll drop a video of a couple clips, but it's kind of weird. And your analysis last time of just, Fousey's doing the Muslim prosperity gospel stuff.
Yeah.
I think is still a really good description, because these videos are interspersed with him just, you know, being at clubs, making fun of people for being broke, and just kind of seems like a little unhinged.
I'm a better Muslim than you, and I put that on God. That's the most un-Islamic thing you can say. You're never supposed to put your piousness over somebody else. And if you are a better Muslim, then you would be a representation of that and tell me how to be a better Muslim. Okay, let me tell you. You never look at a Muslim and say you're a better Muslim than that. Can I fucking speak? May I get a water? May I get a water, please, too? Yeah, speak. Speak. Cover your tattoos up. Stop that. Stop talking to girls. Stop that. Stop beating your dick. Stop that. Look at this guy. Yeah, you're fucked for life. Good luck in hell. I'm fucked for life? Good luck in hell. Good luck in hell. You fucking kafir. You're never supposed to say that to another Muslim. You disgusting. Yeah, I'm disgusting. Mikhail? Yusuf. No wonder. I've seen 10 people in ISIS named Yusuf. That's a prophet's name, you fucking stupid. No, it's not. Fuck. Yes, it is. Prophet Yusuf, sallallahu alaihi. That's a prophet's name, you dumbass. Apologize. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It's too obvious a point to even be that interesting, but it continues to be so incredible, the amount of energy that American imams expel on like queer folks, on Muslim, women who don't like meet their standards of piety, and now on these kind of bros who are speaking in the name of Islam. Yeah. Like, where are the people who are panicked about, like, I mean, I'm sure a lot more young Muslims access this content than access a lot of the folks that like imams are worried about, you know?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially like young Muslim men, unfortunately.
That's the thing is I do think that with Fousey or Yusuf's like popularity on the rise, like he's got 1.8 million followers on TikTok. I don't know anything about Kick, so I don't know how many followers he has there, but it seems like he has quite a few people watching the stream. And yeah, I think that a lot of young Muslim boys are just going to be watching him and Sneeko and Neon and Andrew Tate, and just like Neon will I'll drop a video here that I can find, but he'll be on a stream where he's talking to a woman and he'd be like, what the fuck's wrong with you, bitch? Like blah blah blah, like yeah, and just like really rapid fire, be like, and again, he's doing it to be a troll, but like it's hard, and especially if you're a young guy, to tell what is genuine,
right, and what is like satire. I feel like at that level of trolling, there is not really even satire. I mean, I guess the joke is you, sort of, but
yeah.
How you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing very good myself. What's your name?
Shabs.
Huh?
Shabs.
Oh. Okay. Where are you from?
Toronto.
Why are you so like dry? What the fuck is wrong with you? All right. Listen, I have a question. How many bodies do you have?
Hello? Get my Discord turn up. Yo.
She can hear you, bro.
Hey, listen here, you fucking whore. Answer my question. How many bodies you got?
Okay, chill. Holy shit, bro.
Sorry. I apologize. I'm God. All right.
Can we kick him?
Fuck you, bitch. Listen, you're not kicking me. Let me talk for a second. Just for a second, please.
No, wait. Actually kick him or I'm gonna leave.
It's interesting. We've also talked about this before on our episode about the kind of letter that came out targeting queer Muslims. I think the episode was called like "Don't Ask, Don't Tell." But there seems to be an intergenerational kind of shift rightward on some social issues. There's like, I mean, I would say this is somewhat of a shift rightward. Maybe it's not exactly a political shift, but there is a kind of like conservatism and sort of patriarchal.
It's very macho.
Yeah, very like exactly. And actually, the friend I hung out with on Sunday was just talking about how she's worried that her dad, who's obviously much older than this subsection of people, is being radicalized by like Muslim preachers who just like really ridiculous standards of modesty and stuff. So it feels like it's happening on a level of different generations.
Yeah.
And of course, there's always been those currents, but it does seem like it's kind of gaining traction right now.
It feels very close to the return guys.
The return guys?
Return with a V. Those like people like the old school. V? Instead of it's like the old school Latin, return to tradition.
All right.
Like
so who's that?
Like the just classical Roman philosophy people on Twitter who just have like these Roman statues as their avatars.
Yeah.
And they see themselves as bringing back this like stoic, macho, alpha thing that is undergirded by some philosophical principles.
I didn't know they called themselves the Return. That's interesting.
They don't call themselves the Return. They just, it's like return to tradition, but
yeah, with the V.
That's what they've been called.
Yeah, it's been really stressful apparently for folks.
You're clearly not as online as I am.
I'm pretty online. I think we're just online in different places.
That's true.
I regularly have to stop myself in everyday conversation with new people from being like, I saw on Twitter, so I think I'm pretty online in that respect.
Yeah.
Which is not a brag. It's probably not the healthiest thing, but I've heard that's been very stressful actually for folks who are in classics because they're not used to thinking about their work as being political. They're very used to thinking about like, those of us in Islamic studies know that our work is political, but it's been an interesting thing in the last couple of years where a lot of those people have had to like do public education trainings and stuff because they're really stressed by all the white nationalists who are claiming this inheritance.
Yeah. Like these people, they'll have like an avatar of like Marcus Aurelius, right? And to them, it just means stoicism in the sense that like, oh, I just shouldn't have emotions.
Right.
And I should just be an emotionless robot.
There's
Instead
also,
of
there's a lot of crossover also with it's like different sections of white people looking for kind of a mythic past, but with like neo-pagans who are claiming like a Viking legacy and who are interested in like Scandinavian culture.
They definitely idolize the violence or like
exactly. It's okay to like
the unrestrained
some aspects of the Vikings, but not the
unrestrained sort of macho.
Yeah.
And
assertion. Also their kind of understanding of them as like Aryan warriors, which is like a very contemporary understanding of race, Yeah.
But these guys are kind of doing it, but Muslim.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad
but they're not like, they're kind of not doing anything special. Like if they were doing it and they're like, yo, we're going back to Salah ad-Din.
You just like Salah ad-Din.
We're
then you might be on board.
We're out here in a tent in the desert.
No, they're just on Twitch. Yeah.
They're on Twitch. They're in the club.
Oh, yeah. That's
they
funny.
Get out of the club and get in the desert, go in a tent, and then, we'll see.
That's funny.
But yeah, that's all I got on that. I'll drop some clips where it seems appropriate, but it's kind of I'll continue to update in future episodes. I'm like interested to see where this goes, but I'm sure it's nowhere good, and it really seems like Fousey is really unhinged, and there's just like so much.
Do you want to co-author a paper? We could write like a Muslim masculinities.
What I would actually like to do is I had this idea earlier. I would actually, I think it would be cool to do an episode where we just collect a lot of clips of these male Muslim influencers.
I would like that too, like across different spectrums.
I don't even know about across different spectrums, but like
just like the young asshole ones.
Maybe, I don't know. We can talk about it, but I think it would be cool to have an episode where we just kind of discuss the trends in these.
I think it'd be interesting too. We could actually even pair that with some like academic readings. That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm down for that.
Okay.
That sounds like a depressing but interesting episode.
Yeah. I'll start saving some clips.
Gonna really fuck up our algorithms. That's the rough thing with those kind of things.
Yeah. But it is something that I feel like if you're Muslim in the US,
you should be aware of.
You should be paying attention to.
And especially if you have
because your sons, if you have children.
I was gonna say if you have any kind of interaction with like youth, it's good to be aware of those trends and be thoughtful about where people are coming from when they're saying things.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a good bridge or field from that. I should have asked for permission first. I'll double check before you put this in. But a acquaintance of mine posted on Instagram about this kind of lovely concept that I've been really enjoying this week. I guess I'm in a concept mood, which is called, initially she was calling it sloppy salah, but now she's calling it soft salah. And it's just the kind of idea of sort of like getting people to pray more. This person has a background in chaplaincy. If she wants me to use her name, I'll put it in the like show notes or description on Instagram, but if not, I'll just kind of talk about the concept. But yeah, she kind of posted about it and started a WhatsApp group, which I found really helpful. And the idea is just that like any prayer is better than no prayer. And that this kind of idea of perfection can be like a barrier from people praying more. And so that even if you're not praying on time, even if you're not doing all 5, just to kind of essentially like start somewhere and like build with like achievable goals. Yeah. Which sounds really basic, but I don't see that many like, I don't know, Muslim sources kind of giving that kind of really
actually
meeting where you're at sort of advice that actually like is not just motivated in shame. At least for me, like it's more motivating. Yeah.
I will say the video that I mentioned of Yusuf and Sneeko praying
some sloppy salah.
Yusuf was praying in shorts, and then all the comments were like, yo, you're praying in shorts right now? so he was doing a little bit of sloppy salah.
He should have some room to start where he's at. Yeah, obviously I don't think it's meant to be an excuse. Like it's not meant to be like, hey, like I will always, not have great wudu or, purification before I pray, or like it's not meant to sort of like be stagnant. If anything, I think it's meant to encourage people to do more. And I've been not praying a ton, but more than I had been previously. And whenever I do, I text the WhatsApp group, and it's like really motivating and sweet to have people like heart it or be like, like because you prayed Maghrib, like I'll pray Aisha, and it's just nice. So
I think that's sweet. I think it's getting the people on the margins who, of course, like the ideal form is like you should strive for like perfection,
of course, quotation marks.
But some people that's a barrier, like period, right? And you're just not gonna pray. But if you're on the margins, you're like, okay, I'm gonna do my best here, and I'm not gonna let that stop me. Then I think that's good, and hopefully the idea is that you build a habit.
Yeah, I think that's a thing.
And then you can improve on that habit.
And people are different. I know some people who, the way they're wired, it's more like all or nothing. And I think like respect, and if that works for you, that's great. If you're the kind of person who's like, I'm praying 5 times a day on time, or I'm not praying at all, then like obviously go for it. I'm not really like that. I'm a little more of like a gradual person. And so I think it's just like knowing yourself and meeting yourself where you're at. But I really like that spirit of like encouragement. I think that's a nice way to go.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
My turn?
Yeah.
I actually, because also follow on from last episode, I've been reading Intisar Rabb's Doubt in Islamic Law.
Yeah.
And there was a case in this chapter that I thought was interesting.
Like, give a quick little brief about the book too, and about Intisar Rabb.
Intisar Rabb is a professor of law at Harvard University School of Law, and I think she's also in the history department. And she wrote this book about doubt in Islamic law, and I think, I'm still reading through it, but the idea is often presented that Islamic law is this thing that is very dogmatic or very certain and settled in, like very certain of what is right and wrong. And she kind of talks about how in the early centuries of Islam, like the first I think 700 years or so, a lot of jurists had to deal with cases of doubt, and looking into those cases actually gives you insight into what moral values arose in that.
Interesting. And is she writing mostly about criminal law?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like
mostly in criminal
crimes. So like, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And so I think, let me go to where was it? So I'm going to read a little bit here, but this is a case about hudud crimes and avoiding punishment. And I thought it was interesting because I think one of the hudud crimes that was brought up last episode obviously is zina.
Extramarital sex.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that is, I think the Quran is like, and the Hadith is like pretty clear about.
Yeah. So just in case you haven't listened to previous episodes, that could be either like cheating on your spouse or having sex before you're married.
Yeah. So this is a case of a guy named Ma'iz, I think is how you say that. I'm not really quite sure.
Wouldn't it be, it's so wild to think about these people whose stories are like dragged throughout time. Do you know what I mean? Like, like this is probably like such a big gossip in his time period.
Yeah. So this is someone who committed adultery. He's like a zealous convert.
Okay.
Who wants to repent for the adultery that he committed. So he goes to the prophet.
Oh.
And wants to be judged and punished according to law. So
even though there's not like a formal system of law at this time, this is used for precedent for later cases. Or the prophet was existing, so he kind of was like the Sharia, I guess, in a sense.
Yeah,
like
this is like one of these things that's in the doubt canon that Intisar Rabb refers to. But I'll read for a bit here. So a man by the name of Ma'iz was a zealous new convert who wished to confess to the crime of adultery. He lived in Medina, not long after the prophet had arrived there from Mecca to take up leadership over the community in the year 622. By his own account, Ma'iz had committed adultery. Feeling remorseful, he came to the prophet, who presided over the criminal case in his capacity as new leader of the small town. Ma'iz confessed, begging the prophet to punish him. If his confession was to be believed, Ma'iz violated the Islamic law against adultery and would be liable for punishment by flogging, imprisonment, or even, according to the interpretation of most later Muslim jurists, death. The Quran prohibits fornication and adultery, both called zina, and directs the judges to flog those who commit zina, whether male or female, 100 times each. In addition, although stoning was not a Quranic punishment, early Muslims understood the Sunnah to also authorize death by stoning for adultery convictions. The Prophet initially sent Ma'iz away, declining to hear the case. Ma'iz came back a second time and a third, each time renewing his confession and requesting punishment.
Aww.
Each time with the same result. On the fourth time the Prophet finally spoke, he asked some of Ma'iz's neighbors whether the defendant was of sound mind, to which they replied he was. The Prophet then suggested that Ma'iz had not committed adultery within the full meaning of the term, but perhaps had merely kissed or winked or looked at another woman. This is where I think it's funny. Ma'iz insisted that he was of sound mind and had committed adultery within the full meaning of the term. He's just like, no, I fucked, dude.
This was not a wink.
He's like, I absolutely fucked. Eventually, the Prophet found Ma'iz guilty but did not punish him. In fact, he seems to have said nothing about the punishment initially. Not waiting for specific instructions from the Prophet, the townspeople themselves decided to enforce the harsher of the punishments, death by stoning. When they informed the Prophet of what they had done, he exclaimed in dismay that they should have let Ma'iz go. He further remarked that if Ma'iz had repented, God surely would have accepted his repentance.
Oh, that's so sweet. So the kind of like concept behind that is like even the Prophet, even with these kind of like harsh injunctions in the Quran, like sincere repentance.
It's something that it seems like it's like, oh, this is a very religiously certain, like it's undeniable or like you can't argue against it. But on the same hand, like the Prophet is supposed to be like the,
who would understand the Quran?
Who would understand
the Prophet? Yeah,
God's will on earth better than the Prophet?
Or even God's word, yeah.
Yeah. And for some reason, he refused to dole out punishment for something that other people say is
I'm gonna steal that from you and I think incorporate the anecdote into my class because that's such a lovely illustration. I really like that.
So the idea here is like a lot of the doubt, and it Sharia and these doubt canons, like from what I know so far, based on what little I've read, is that when there is doubt, you really have to err on the side of
caution.
Not punishing.
Yeah.
Right. And even in this case where the guy's like, absolutely not, I have fucked more than you could believe. Still for some reason, mercy was
I wonder, this also makes me think about the idea of like sincere repentance, you know, versus like when you do something repeatedly and you kind of are like, I'm not going to do it again, but like, and everyone around you knows.
Right.
Versus, if anyone could judge the quality of someone's character and the sincerity of their repentance, presumably it would be like the prophet.
And I wouldn't think that would mean like, oh, I'm never going to mess up in this way again.
Well, hopefully, but yeah.
Well, I mean, it depends, right? Like some people have problems of addiction, but like at least there's like an internal struggle.
Right.
And the only person who can really know or not person, but the only being who can really know is, the only person is you.
Right. And
then God
the only
can
other
know, right?
entity is God. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And I think it also gets to the idea of like intention, sincerity of intention.
Yeah.
In terms of, I think even in like American criminal law, intention plays a role. Like, if something is accidentally happens, that's a crime versus if you intended for it to happen.
Yeah.
And so if you both don't intend for it to happen again and you've sincerely repented. But that's a lovely anecdote. I love the like intensity of him being like, you don't understand, this happened.
Yeah. It almost feels like a little braggadocious.
Yeah. Like, this is not a wink. Like, something went down. It was not good.
I've had so much sex, I deserve to die.
Yeah. That's a really good anecdote. Very interesting.
But I really like the way she writes. And it's very clear, accessible, straightforward. And I appreciate the anecdotes. So I'm going to definitely keep reading it.
Yeah, if you really like it, maybe I'll read it too, and we could do a book review for this podcast.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. All right, my next one is a harder transition. These were just two memes I saw on Instagram. One of them I messed up and already sent to you, but we're both Virgos. I don't really believe in like astrology, but sometimes it's really spot on, and you're just like, damn, that's crazy.
I think it's just general enough that some people will.
These are so specific, you'll see. But I'm a Virgo, Ahmed's a Virgo, and my mama's a Virgo. So I've got like a lot of Virgos in my life, and our energy is strong.
I think my way of looking at it is we're two people together who have similar traits that are well suited for one another, but
that too. Okay, this first one I already sent to you, but that was really funny, where I told you about it. It's I'll argue for an hour and be like, listen, I'm not going to sit here and argue with you.
Yeah.
It's really
sometimes I do see
me and Ahmed.
Sometimes in my head I'm like, oh, I'm not arguing, I'm just making a point.
I feel that way too. I genuinely feel that way, so I totally feel you. Yeah.
Like I'm not mad, I don't feel any way about this, but I just feel a strong desire to make sure that you understand me on my own terms. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's really funny. It's one of those things that I think the longer we're together, the more I realize that we have in common.
Yeah.
Like a need to explain and kind of be understood.
But yeah, I bet people not born in September feel that way.
I don't know, man. Probably not to that extent.
You don't think so?
That's my feeling.
Okay.
This other one sounded like me. I thought it was funny. I have cleaned the house. The house is now read only. Please do not edit the house.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not like that.
I'm not normally,
you
but
clean the house,
if
but
we have guests coming, I am like, let's just not move anything. Yeah. I'm not like crazy about it, but
you don't say anything about it. Like you clean the house, and sometimes I will like move a thing and then come back like 5 seconds later, and I'll find that it's just been undone entirely. Right? Like I'll draw a curtain, and then it's just like immediately drawn back.
Yeah.
Like because I'm like watching TV, I'll draw the curtain so that there's no glare. Go to the bathroom, come back. The curtain is because it looks prettier when the curtains are back.
Are back, yeah. Some of that I do intentionally. Some of it is just honestly force of habit. Like I pass by a room and I just like immediately.
Yeah.
To me, it's kind of like a painting is crooked. I'm just like, oh, reset.
Right. Yeah.
Like the other day, I came back to the room and I was like, did I already draw the curtains back? Because I was about to watch TV too. It was like inconvenient to do again, but yeah.
That's very true. Yeah, you do like to keep the house very tidy.
But it's one of those like 30s things. Like I never used to be like that.
Really?
Yeah. I think it was nice though. Like it's a point of pride and I enjoy it. Like I think before I didn't have a lot of control over my space because I had amazing roommates, but like, you know, we didn't get to like thoughtfully curate a space together.
Yeah.
So part of it is like, oh, like I love my house, you know, and like I like the way it looks and it brings me pleasure.
Yeah. It's almost like we're like little dolls and you're the you're the one in control. You're like the girl god.
We both are. We agreed on how to organize the mugs. We compromised.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, what else on that?
That's all I had.
Anything else?
I thought those were good. Yeah.
Okay. Did you see the New York Times story today about airlines?
I think I saw you post it right before we started recording, but I didn't really get a chance to look at it.
So yeah, there was a big story, and you know, I'm not going to read from it or anything like that, but it was a pretty in-depth story about a lot of close calls that have happened at airports across the country. So no collisions or anything, and the U.S. hasn't had any catastrophic events like that, I think, in a little over a decade, according to the story. But there have been a lot of close calls, so near collisions, and they have been increasing in the last decade. So I think it's gone up like 25% or something like that.
Because of more air travel or worse regulation or a mix?
So there has been more air travel, but I think as a percentage, they've also gone up. So there are a couple of reasons that are cited, right? So I think the air traffic control people a lot of them are retiring. They're expecting to lose like 1,400 of them in the next year or so due to retirement. And these are like seasoned professionals.
I think COVID also took a number on some people.
COVID, and then underfunding by the FAA. Like,
great.
Like it's one of those jobs where it takes you years to train someone because it's so complex.
To be like a pilot?
No, to be an air traffic control person in the tower.
Got it.
You got to keep your mouth or your mic to your mouth. You can't keep moving it around. Yeah. It's one of those things that takes years and years of training because I'm sure like the safety procedures and like everything that you have to know is just so difficult. And there's like a lot of regulation for a really good reason, right? Because if you mess up, it's, 100 people could die more. And so a lot of people are about to retire and not a lot of people are about to come on. It's also one of those things where people have been overworked and there's an effect still happening from the Reagan era where he squashed them from organizing and unionizing the air traffic control people. And yeah, it's just kind of like a scary thing to think about.
Yeah, that is scary. I will say though, I think statistically you're still a lot more likely to die in a car crash. I think that flying feels so scary because you can't control stuff.
Yeah, but the idea that this thing that is supposed to have all these like, they call it like the Swiss cheese of like regulation or like procedures, right? Because the idea is that there are so many things that like if one thing slips through a hole, like another thing will catch it. Right. They have so many redundant things built in.
And this shows some of those things are wearing thin.
Yeah. There are several mistakes made by air traffic control, mistakes made by pilots that resulted in like planes coming in within like a couple feet of each other.
This is the kind of also sort of aggregation of social safety nets or safety nets in general that makes you feel like also, like our systems aren't working the way they should be generally.
Yeah. Yeah. And so this is happening, and this isn't mentioned in the New York Times story, but I also just feel like I've seen a couple stories over the last couple of months just about how shitty flying is getting. Like I'm seeing a lot of videos on TikTok. Like there was a couple people or a plane full of people on a Spirit Airlines flight had just been on the plane. Like they boarded and they were told they were going to take off within 30 minutes. And 7 hours later, they're just still there. No one's telling them anything.
Yeah. I think it's also the kind of thing because we haven't invested in other forms of infrastructure, like, you know, long distance trains that are efficient.
It's overtaxed.
So exactly, yeah, it's the only option people have,
which really sucks. But yeah, so these people were stuck for 7 hours, and it's just like the airlines don't give a fuck.
Do you remember the lady who thought that she was seeing like a like lizard guy? That was fun.
I don't know if she thought she was seeing a lizard guy, but she was freaking out about something.
I think it was that.
Really?
Yeah, she was like describing the person that no one else could see.
Oh. Turned out she was like a CEO of a company or something.
Really?
I think so. Or like the chief marketing officer. I don't really remember.
Okay.
But yeah, airlines just like are continuing to give less of a shit about their passengers, just like totally mistreating them. And they've also been lobbying the government to deregulate the airline industry. So a lot of the things that keep us safe or like somewhat comfortable on a flight, like leg space.
Yeah.
They seem to want that to be going away very soon.
There's so little leg space already. How could they possibly shorten it?
And the other thing is they are trying to make it in some cases where there only needs to be one pilot. So I think a lot of like for domestic flights, like you still have to have 2 pilots in case something goes wrong, and that has averted disaster in the past, where you can think of like the captain will suddenly like pass out, or if they have a stroke or something, and that has happened, the second pilot will take over, and you know everyone is safe.
Yeah.
But they're trying to make it so they don't have to pay 2 pilots, which, you know, if you want an analogy, it's like how the railroad industry lobbied against having, you know, multiple people in the crew, and now people are working longer shifts and they're worn out, they're exhausted, and it's led to a lot of derailments and, you know, chemical spills, contaminations. So just, I don't know, it's a scary thing to think about.
Yeah, I mean, I will say again though, like I think it's fair to be scared, and we all should like watch these deregulations and kind of hope that they don't happen and work for them not to happen. But again, just like if anyone is nervous while flying, you are a lot more likely to die in a car still. So
for now.
For now, right. I hope that might not be the case forever, but that is the case now.
Mm-hmm.
I want trains, man. Then I wouldn't have to drive or fly.
Yeah.
I don't mind flying personally, but I get why it's nerve-wracking.
I feel myself in my 30s becoming more paranoid about things that I just like never thought of when I was younger.
So you were always a nervous flyer, right?
Flying, yeah, but
are there other things?
I think so.
The flesh eating bacteria in the water.
Yeah. There's apparently just like all the water on the coast is a toilet, like all the oceans are toilets. And so when you go to the beach, you're actually going to the toilet. You know how in Barbie, Ken says his job is beach?
Yeah.
No, your job is toilet. Because beach is toilet.
I don't think all beaches have the same amount of fecal matter on them, but it's a problem.
Some have more.
Yeah, it's a problem for sure.
But they all have some.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the flesh-eating bacteria story. I can't remember exactly which states that was in, but it was like along the East Coast, and I think like 3 people have had a very rare flesh-eating bacteria from swimming in the water, where it just hadn't really been observed before, and it's because of climate change.
I get nervous like in elevators. That's been the case since like 9/11, since I was like 9.
Mm-hmm.
And I get nervous with like, I guess like rides.
Oh, we were talking about state fair and carnival rides earlier. Yeah.
But I don't get nervous with flying or other stuff. But yeah, none of the stuff it's all kind of random.
I cannot believe how many state fair rides I went on as a child. And that's one thing I actually am never going to do again is roller coasters anywhere, not even at like a theme park, unless it's very slow moving and close to the ground. Like the little flyer thing, like the ski lift type thing. That was fine.
Right.
But
it's also, it's potentially could be a problem for like your neck and back. So I think that's smart.
That's true. Yeah. But I did see a video recently of the Ohio State Fair, I think, that I told you about. And I think this was maybe last year or a couple of years ago. Sometimes these things resurface, but It was one of those like pendulous rides that spins while it swings and whatever, and a chunk of it hit the side of the frame and just detached a couple of the
so terrifying.
You know, God. The carts, and like people got flung around, and you know, a couple people died, and a lot of people got injured. And I'm like, oh
my God, this is not on the same level, but there's this thing in Pittsburgh called the Incline, and it's like, it was for minors initially. And so you like get in this thing and it goes up the hill, and it basically kind of just looks like if you can picture like a car attached to a track. It's not, I'm nervous with those kind of things, but it's not objectively scary for most people. Like, it's not a big deal. It just kind of feels like
it's just a cart that goes up an incline.
Yeah,
or like a mountain.
And the one that we did, the Duquesne Incline, is still fine and well serviced. But I'm glad that we did that one, because the other one recently broke down and people were stuck in the middle of it, and they were fine. It wasn't dangerous or anything, but I think I would literally pass out if that happened to me, because I was already so nervous. I read that story and I was like, I'm never getting on the incline again.
Yeah, I mean, the incline is really just something you do once anyway. So that's good. I'm glad we did it before.
But it also speaks to, like, I don't know, some of these things are legitimately like scary, but then also we have like our own preconceived things that make us more nervous. It's like, and they intersect in different ways. You know what I mean? Like, I don't.
You're more likely to die driving than on the incline.
100%.
Does that make you better?
Exactly. But that wouldn't. I never feel nervous when you're driving because I trust you. But we are more likely for like someone else to hit us than we are to. Exactly, than to like die on the incline, but I'm much more nervous on the incline. Similarly, like, I grew up swimming and I'm a strong swimmer and I love the ocean, and so I don't really tend to worry that much about, like, you know, bacteria and stuff, but like, I mean, it happens, absolutely.
Do you think our parents would have been as nervous if they had as much information as we did when they were our age?
I don't think they had the same language for it, but I think everyone's always had their tics. I mean, my dad is really claustrophobic. He gets a little like anxious when like exits are closed off or if he can't find an exit. So yeah, I don't think it's an entirely new thing.
But that's different than being like, our systems are falling apart, and that's what's making.
I think he like lived in some countries where like there was like some incidents where like people like rushed things, and he like heard about people getting trampled and stuff. So I think it was rooted in some society not working out type stuff in his case. Or he was like saw some instances where like crowds got out of control. I don't know what to do about that. Like, I do feel like you're inundated with all this information about how infrastructure is failing and policies failing, and we're seeing like the real-time effects of that. And I'm just like, how do I not be terrified of everything now, you know? Not that I am. That's an exaggeration, but you know, it kind of does fill you with dread in a way that I think it's like limiting the amount of information that you take in if it's not serving like a specific purpose, not to like.
But this was on the front page of the New York Times.
I know, not to being like let's blind to the world, but like not ruminating on it. I think also, I mean, I don't know. This is like kind of go back to like our earlier perspectives, but like there's also plenty of things that are happening that are positive. I mean, climate change is one of them that I think it's hard not to feel a little more fatalistic about, and that's fair enough. I mean, also, like, things are getting worse because the climate's warming, but the lack of information and access to, like, images that we have, you're right, is kind of unprecedented. Like, it can potentially feel a lot more viscerally close when we see, like, a horror happening somewhere else than it would have for people 30 years ago, even. Because they're not kind of, like, seeing it in real time in the same way. So like, am I supposed to see all this like flooding and wildfires? I also until last week I did not know hurricanes even hit the West Coast. I thought it was like a strictly East Coast thing. Really? Yeah. But then I read, and apparently it's pretty rare for hurricanes to make landfall on the West Coast. But it does happen, I guess. Yeah.
Rarely until now. But I guess it ended up not being all that
too bad.
Terrible.
Thankfully, yeah.
But it's kind of hard to see floods and wildfires and all these earthquakes and refugee boats and all this stuff, and then have to like sit on a meeting at work.
I
will
say,
like,
I also think something a therapist once pointed out to me, which is like fair and also good to keep in mind, is that sometimes when you are in a certain state of mind, you obviously like choose to imbibe more information that kind of like can be a little bit of like a confirmation bias.
Sure.
Of like, I'm feeling down and the world is awful. It's not just me. And that's true. Yeah. But it's also the kind of thing where like when you're in love and you feel happy, like you see flowers. You know what I mean? Like all those things are both usually always there. Yeah, sometimes there is more extremity, but
Unfortunately, flowers don't make policy.
They don't.
I wish they did.
They don't.
They would. It'd be great.
Yeah.
If we could get those the Ents from Lord of the Rings to just be the Supreme Court, I'd love that.
That would be great. All right,
Get Treebeard in there.
I've got a follow up from that I think kind of is a natural segue.
Okay.
And this is a Times article called "These voters share almost no political beliefs, but they agree on one thing: we're failing as a nation."
Yes, I agree.
I'll just read the first couple of paragraphs. There are a few things that Republicans and Democrats agree on, but one area where a significant share of each party finds common ground is belief that the country is headed towards failure. Overall, 37% of registered voters say that problems are so bad that we are in danger of failing as a nation. And it's really interesting, like the reasons why.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll kind of go down a little bit, but some like Republicans, I wouldn't even say that this is far right. I would just say maybe, I don't really know what to call this group, but there's some Republicans who are worried that like communism is taking over the US.
Mm-hmm.
There are people who are worried about the restrictions that happened after COVID and the implications that has for the state.
Mm-hmm.
And then for Democrats, there was a lot of worry about Republicans saying that the election was stolen, or Trump supporters saying that the election was stolen, and a lot of worry about abortion, especially among like women Democrats. I just found that interesting. I think it's one of those things that's a good reminder in a way, like not to put a positive spin on it, but that like to me there almost feels something hopeful about being like, yeah, people across the political spectrum don't really believe in the project of the US, don't believe in the direction it's going in.
Yeah.
And there could be some kind of coalition there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's tricky because when you look at the specific reasons why, they're fairly different. But I don't think that loss of belief in the United States as a project is necessarily a negative thing. As long as people maintain some kind of sense of like belief in community and don't become isolated, whether that's more local community or just using the nation state as a means to an end as opposed to like this kind of large patriotic project. But yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, a couple things there. I think generally the way that even those two parties, right, like if you're looking at the dichotomy between liberals and Republicans or Democrats and Republicans, the way the parties themselves sell themselves is by pointing out how bad things are. It's just that the bad things are the other person's fault. So I think that if you really strongly identify with either party or its platform, you're generally just looking at how messed up things are, and you're saying like, yeah, I agree this country's going to a bad place, but it's his fault. And I think that's just been heightened more and more in the last couple of elections. It's not necessarily bad that people are losing faith in patriotic American politics. Like I think there is a good form of patriotism. It's just that the U.S. doesn't have that. It has like this weird.
I don't think there is a good form of patriotism.
I do. I think like theoretically you could have people who are think about increasing the social welfare state. Like I would be very patriotic if we increased it and we thought more about building a large scale, distributive government that could handle, because at some point you do have to do large capacity planning. Like that's what a federal government should be for. But unfortunately it is mostly right now just waging war abroad and also on poor people here.
I think for me though, I would want a kind of checks and balances where the state is always kind of in debt to the people that it's supposed to be serving. And I feel like that looks different than like contemporary patriotism, which usually is kind of fueled on a sentiment of exclusion. Like I think about even like welfare states that are, as much as something has been successful in a world capitalist economy like Sweden, which have done a decent job of like providing safety nets. I think that's commendable. But patriotism in Sweden often looks like racism. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so I think it would be very different if patriotism meant like investment in community that was protecting like all strata of society.
Right.
Yeah.
Like imagine if your interactions with the state were not, you see a police officer on every street corner, or train derailments, or sending Israel, $6 billion for weaponry to, brutalize Palestinians, or just like any other number of things that you can hear people talking about today. But if your, interaction with the state was, oh, I can take a year off of work because there's a social safety net and I can do family planning, or when you have a baby, they send you a check.
Yeah.
Or when you lose your job, they send you a check. Or when you lose your job, you can still go to the hospital and get health care.
Right.
You'd be like, okay, yeah, this country's great and there's something to be proud of there.
But I don't even know if I'd feel the need to be proud of the country. I'd be proud of like the people who made that system happen. But I see what you're saying. Yeah.
But the state is, to a certain extent, like it should be the people,
exactly.
right? Like it should be the will of the people.
Yeah.
Now it is
also
not.
Also clarify
right?
that like I am proud of a lot of aspects of the U.S. I'm proud of like all the resistance movements that this country has fostered. Like
that's not the state. That's like people.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that there are legacies that I'm proud of. I'm not like so jaded that I'm like, oh, there's nothing good that's happened in American history. I think that anything, a kind of way to unite across party lines could also be like, look, like we're proud of like workers. We're proud of like people who are fighting for, basic rights, who aren't like the 1%, you know.
But now there's such a gap between like the people and the state that it's
But sorry, I'm just checking my phone because
you're good.
That call. But just like in reference to kind of the first thing that you were saying, that like you're right, both Republicans, Democrats kind of like blame each other. But I think what is kind of different about this is typically both Republicans, Democrats have an appeal to patriotism, and so these are kind of like these are people who are party members and who identify with their parties, who are just saying like, I don't think that things are going to get better regardless of who's in charge.
Oh, really?
I mean, Biden's in charge, and these are Democrats who are like thinking that the U.S. is going to continue to decline no matter what. So I think that's
it's just kind of like that poll was measuring like an overall just despair
sense of
generally
in the American system as an institution.
I see.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting.
I'm reminded of a Simpsons clip that I really want to throw in here, so I'm going to do that.
The politics of failure have failed. We need to make them work again. Tomorrow, when you are sealed in the voting cubicle, vote for me, Senator Bob Dole. I am looking forward to an orderly election tomorrow, which will eliminate the need for a violent bloodbath. America, take a good look at your beloved candidates. They're nothing but hideous space reptiles. It's true. We are aliens. But what are you going to do about it? It's a two-party system. You have to vote for one of us.
He's right. This is a two-party system. Well, I believe I'll vote for a third-party candidate.
Go ahead. Throw your vote away.
Also a really great Futurama clip that I'm going to drop in here as well.
It's time someone had the courage to stand up and say, I'm against those things that everybody hates. Now, I respect my opponent. I think he's a good man. But quite frankly, I agree with everything he just said.
These are the candidates? They sound like clones. Wait a minute. They are clones.
Don't let their identical DNA fool you. They differ on some key issues.
I say your 3-cent titanium tax goes too far. And I say your 3-cent titanium tax doesn't go too far enough.
Yeah, I don't know. What do you think about that? Like, maybe it'll lead to some sort of change, or people
I don't know if
it
necessarily will, but I think that that's like a interesting place to go with it. And I feel like when I've talked to organizers who have given me a sense of hope, it's been people who kind of think about like, where do you use this sort of data as a way to like interact with people? You know what I mean? And like, what are the ways that you can kind of think about this as on a local level, a more kind of positive building project? Like, if we're not invested in American empire and maybe we don't feel good about that, what are kind of alternative visions of the US? Yeah. That was, to be clear, that was very much not the point of the article. It's just something I kind of thought about it after.
I mean, I don't know. I think people are just got to get more serious about looking at some of these third-party candidates, like looking at Cornel West. And I mean, say what you will about each one of them. This is not an endorsement, right? Cornel West, Marianne Williamson, RFK. Like,
none of those people excite me, but yeah.
Sure, but, you know, unfortunately, Bernie's not gonna run again. But
I'm interested in more local politics more than now more than ever. I think. Yeah.
I don't have a good sense of whether people are getting more involved locally, or if it's still kind of you just see involvement once every 4 years. I'm not really sure what gets people most excited or out the door. What do you think?
I think unfortunately it's still presidential elections exclusively for a lot of people. Yeah.
But there needs to be like, the thing that you don't get in local politics is an outlining of like a national platform, right? Like maybe some groups do or whatever, but I do think there needs to be, you just got to look at like the federal government and be like, this is all wrong and we could fix it and make people's lives better. You need like a party that is willing to do that. And it's neither of the ones we have.
Any last items or anything else more to say about that item?
No, I don't think so.
Did you get through all of them?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything else on my list. Let me double check.
I feel like we did a pretty good job with the fields also. There were some clear connections, which is good.
We'll see. Anyway, yeah, we're pretty much at an hour, so
nice.
We'll call it.
Yay.
All right, bye.
What are we going to read next week?
Oh, I don't know.
You'll see next time.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.